Well, yeah, I did it today.
Yeah, I want to welcome everyone and call to order the Board of Aldermen meeting for Thursday, February 4th. And invocation.
I have it.
You have it. Okay, that will be, yes, please.
Please pray with me. Heavenly Father, we ask that you bless this town and keep it a beautiful and friendly place to live. We pray for your guidance to enable this board to work together to make fair and informed decisions tonight. We also pray that our police officers, firefighters, and members of our armed services here and around the world remain safe as they risk so much for our security. And as we mark the 18th anniversary later this month of the invasion of Iraq, and pause to remember the loss of 18 Marines from Camp Lejeune's 2nd Marine Expeditionary Brigade on March 23rd, 2003 in An Nazariya, Iraq. We further ask that you keep an especially watchful eye on our 4 deployed service members who are serving in harm's way, as so many of them, much like some of those Marines, at some point have called North Topsail Beach home. We also pray that our town be spared the ravages of hurricanes and other natural disasters, that everyone associated with the town remains safe and secure. We ask this in his name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, next is the approval of the agenda.
Mayor, I have a couple of items for the agenda.
Yes, sir.
In section 7, under the public hearing, I'd like to table the Campbell Land Use Plan update hopefully until the April meeting. The board did not give clear enough instructions to staff on preparing their response to the board's comments, and I think we need to have those responses to our questions answered before we are ready to consider approving the plan. The other item is in the consent agenda, and it's the February 4th minutes. Again, I'd like to table that item, take it out of the consent agenda, to table it until the April meeting. The minutes don't clearly reflect the mayor's report and the alderman's report from the February 4th meeting. So I think we need to send that back to staff and get better clarification of the mayor's report and the alderman's report. Third item I'd like to add is under continuing business is the federal project parking update. And I think that Manager Gilbride would be the person to lead that, since he's been dealing with this issue most recently. So those are changes to the agenda I'd like to see, Mayor.
I'm just trying to keep up, Mike. So you had the county land use plan, you had the minutes from the 2-4 meeting.
Yep.
Parking update.
Yep.
And what was the last one?
Parking update.
Did I miss one though? I
For the
feel like I
core,
missed
no, for
one.
the core project.
Core project parking update.
Oh, okay, so I didn't. Okay, that's one thing. Any comments or concerns? Yes, sir.
I just have a question for Deb. Deb, are there any timing issues around item 7 on the Coastal Area Management Act plan? Is there an issue about not getting it approved at this meeting and getting it approved in April?
Other than we paid the advertising in the paper to have pay for a legal ad for a public hearing tonight. And when you delay it, it's going to take longer to get it to the CRC and get it approved. All those.
What? I don't know why we're still kicking this thing down the road. I frankly think that I read everything in here. I reviewed it. I think it's time to approve it.
Well,
I posted it about a month ago, and I thought that I had sent everybody a link to it. And had it on the town's website, so it kind of is disheartening to find out this evening that there was something that wasn't done to the board's satisfaction.
this has been my concern going back to November 3rd meeting. We talked about this last time. So, I would answer by saying that, what I've said earlier, that the authors of the plan never gave a summary of their response to the questions that were asked by the board.
I
And
thought,
as you recall, I had a pile of questions.
I was gonna
And I
say,
have not received an answer to my questions.
Alderman Benson, I thought that you guys were gonna try and get together offline and
Well,
just
that
kind of
would be
work through them.
fine. But we can't approve it till we do that. I'd be glad to do it offline.
So,
I want to approve the plan.
so it's March and the way it was left in December was you're all gonna get together and hash all this out. And here it is March and we're trying to get this thing approved. And why haven't we gotten together and gotten it all hashed out? I think primarily you're the only member of this board that's got issues with
Exactly.
that, with that plan as presented.
And I have not received a response from staff, so I can't do anything.
I did not take I misunderstood that you wanted me to provide you a direct response. When the direction that I was given, as I understood it, was there was some discussion whether or not to send the land use plan back to the planning board, and I think that the mayor had asked that question, or to give it to Landon and I to go over the questions that you have. And all I did was cut and paste the minutes from that meeting, and Landon and I went over there, went through them, and the changes that were made are highlighted in yellow in the document that's provided for tonight's meeting.
So I
So
think,
I'm not a-
I didn't understand that you, I did not understand that you wanted a one-on-one meeting with me, because I certainly would have
I
I've
don't,
done that, but one of the problems that I have, Mr. Benson, is that Mr. Holland is no longer working with either Holland and Associates or with the company that bought out Holland and Associates. So that's gonna take some time for me to figure out who I'm supposed to work with, and for them to get up to speed on
the
that
plan,
land use plan.
the plan did not, or the agenda did not indicate that changes were highlighted in yellow in the plan.
Sir,
The plan looked the same as it looked in November of last year.
sir, they are highlighted. When I opened the link, I saw highlights, and that's why I couldn't understand why there was a controversy. And I'll say that I emailed that link, and so as you scroll through that document, to me, it was, I thought that.
Okay, just briefly, okay, let's go like this. My main concern with the document has always been that it's not strong enough for conservation. What did you do in the document to strengthen the conservation aspect of the Campbell Land Use Plan? That's my main question.
You and I had this discussion, and although I do agree with the spirit and the intent of where you're coming from, wetlands is not the same as our conduit,
You know what we should do?
right?
We should leave this in and discuss what we're discussing now
Okay,
on that agenda item, because it would be germane to that agenda item.
we'll do that.
Don't you think?
I'm fully prepared to discuss that, and if you have any issues that you want as we go through it,
And I
that's the whole point. of having a
apologize
public
for.
hearing.
that's okay. So it sounds to
I'll
me though,
accept the amendment to the agenda.
it sounds to me like the rest of the board is okay moving forward with the hearing. So,
Yes,
Especially because we noticed it.
right.
yes.
So I would say too, I mean, Alderman Benson, you can always abstain from voting as well.
Or
if-
vote no.
Oh, I don't
Or
know.
vote no. So, and I understand you don't want to do that. So hopefully we'll be able to just get the questions answered as we move forward.
Okay,
All right?
Well, I have a change too.
Okay.
Are we done with all those changes?
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly where I'm putting them, but I got.
So we're removing minutes from the consent agenda.
Mhm.
Are we gonna discuss that at some point during Or are we just taking them out and giving them back to staff?
My amendment to the agenda was to table the minutes until staff has time to do a clear job of explaining the mayor's report and the alderman's report.
What's a specific issue with the ordinance?
That's what I'm looking at.
Yeah, well, what is it,
You
Mike?
can't tell who said what, basically. No identification of any of the aldermen other than the name here and there, but it's just run together. It's not a clear explanation of your report, or Alderman Grant's report, or Myers' report, or my report. It's just one big. Yeah. So
I actually didn't notice that either. Trying to get down there.
Can I just ask a question, Mayor?
Yes, sir.
What's the protocol for, and I'm just not pointing a finger at anybody, what's the protocol for sending in things like this? Like, if we get something like that,
I was actually just thinking that same thing. For something like that, which is the minutes, I think we probably could have just sent a note into staff and cleaned that up prior to this meeting. I don't think it had to wait for
I've
the
always
meeting.
done.
So I think in the future, moving forward, if somebody notices an issue, because, you know, we are all coming up to speed here too, from a staff perspective, let's just communicate that something's not clear. And then we're still able to move through the agenda effectively. That's what I would like to propose moving
I
forward.
agree. I think it's a waste of the town's time, the people that are attending the meeting, for us to be going over the minutes.
Yeah, I don't want to do that either.
You know, somebody that's come home from dinner or whatever.
And so what I would say is if, and I can't find it real quick on my laptop here, that's what I'm actually looking for. But I personally would be very happy to help if there's any issues trying to figure out who said what. I think we all would, so,
well, it's pretty easy to straighten out.
okay.
My question is, would it have been easy to straighten out between the time that the board packet was emailed to the Board of Aldermen at approximately 6 o'clock last Thursday or Friday night and today's meeting? Could we have not maybe done all this, coordinating directly with the town clerk and getting it square for tonight?
And I think we just talked through that process, so I think that we're good moving forward. I don't think we have to do that. And I do definitely agree with the parking update. Alderman Leonard, did you have something else you
I
wanted
want to
add?
add something to the, under new business. I would like to add, let me find it here.
I'm sorry, new business, did you say, Tom?
Yes, sir. I'd like to add an item concerning the upcoming NC Byway Conference
Okay,
at the end of April, and specifically concerning sponsorship.
mhm,
The town historically has been a sponsor to both the spring and fall byway conferences, and that it will require a motion and a second and a vote. It needs to probably go in
okay,
new business.
all right, got it. So I'll make that number 5.
Okay.
Anything else from Alderman Grant or Alderman Meyer?
I'm good.
Okay, so where are we put, I just have one question, the parking update, is that going under new business too, or can we do that as part of the
It should be-
manager report?
Continuing.
However you want to handle it.
Okay, well, I think it's gonna come up in the manager report too. Okay, are we ready to move on to the next? Okay, Mr. Gilbride.
We need to have a motion and a second to adopt.
Oh, yeah, minor detail. Do we have a motion to adopt the agenda as amended?
Assuming
So
that the
moved.
clerk has understood what we're,
Second.
Are you good?
okay.
Okay,
Used
second,
used to ask Laura that all the time. That's second.
okay. All in favor then?
Aye.
Okay, all right, now, Mr. Gilbride.
Okay. Corps of Engineers federal project is, continues to wait on the PPA to come back from Washington for all of us to sign. A couple of issues have come up with that. As a matter of fact, according to Mr. Carter, he needs to get the letter from Brian Eads to the Corps referencing those items that we were objecting to in the PPA and the response back from their attorney before he approaches the LGC. Brian didn't agree that that was the way to do it. He wants to send that letter in with the PPA. So I had asked him to call Doug Carter and see if they could come to a consensus on that. So I haven't heard any more about it. The fly in the ointment right now has to do with the parking. The Corps has a very convoluted formula for deciding what the minimum parking requirements are. It was not clear in their appendix O that they sent me, and I wasn't aware that back in 2008 or so, they determined what was the peak requirement for parking, being July 4th of any given year. They require us to have 801 parking spaces, and it goes back to an analysis done many years ago where they utilized all of the side street parking within the project area. We have, I think, right now,
Susan, can you let
476 designated spaces.
Thank
They're
you.
requiring 801.
I'm sorry, can you repeat, just, I want everybody to hear that number again. We have how many right now?
We have 476.
And they want 801.
They want 801.
Okay.
So we're short a few. We could meet their requirements by reopening all of those side streets to parking. So that in addition to raising the taxes down there, we would be allowing and encouraging side street parking throughout the area. I don't know if that's the smartest thing to do. There are some alternatives, which I may have mentioned when I sent that out. One being to establish parking on Island Drive, where we have some huge right of ways and would not be in the front of people's houses. That raises its own safety issues. The other is that one of the prominent landowners down there who has a large empty lot has approached us with the possibility of leasing it to us. So we're in the very early stages of talking to them, and I would certainly prefer to go ahead with a lease of property that would meet our entire 300 some odd space shortfall and not have to go back and impose side street parking on the people in that project area, particularly Ocean City. Whoever did that analysis back in 2008 or 2003, it's not clear, was very optimistic with the numbers of spaces and lots down there. In fact, to the point that I think they were hallucinating, but be that as it may, if we're going to go ahead with the project one way or another, I have to solve the problem of 300 and some odd spaces that were short.
So I wanted to take a minute, if it's all right with you, sir, and just talk through this and have everybody be able to weigh in. I feel very, very strongly personally that I do not want to open up all that side street parking. I think that all the analysis that went into this paid parking project specifically looked at all those side streets where we could safely fit cars, where we couldn't, where we can get emergency vehicles down, where we can't. And that's the reason that we eliminated a lot of that side street parking. The only way I personally, and I know I don't get to vote most of the time, but the only way I personally see myself agreeing to 300 and some more spaces is leasing that lot from, hopefully it's Mr. Chestnut's huge lot down there. I think that's what you're talking about.
Yes.
I mean, I would be in favor of that if we could work out something with him, but I personally am not in favor of just opening up all the side streets. And I will just go around. I don't know, Alderman Meyer.
I have been driving down in that section and I was looking for places. I'm concerned about the side street parking as well. And as far as Island Drive, there's a lot of space where they can park, but it's dangerous.
Saturdays are.
I mean, people drive crazy here, and I think it's just too dangerous to try and do that.
Okay, yes, sir.
I have a legal observation. Unless, and it's easy to get, but there's a difference with what we can do with right-of-way parking versus parking lot
Okay.
parking proceeds. Unless you have local legislation, right-of-way parking, paid parking can only be used for the administration of the parking program itself.
Okay.
That doesn't help us.
No, right.
Parking lot, unless the cost of the parking administration equals or is less than the revenue generated from the right-of-way parking. Whereas parking revenues can be used for any public use.
Okay.
Rightful Beach, several other, about 5 different towns have obtained local legislation that allows them to use right-of-way parking, paid parking for a general public use. But until you have that legislation, it's restricted funds.
When you say local legislation, you mean going back to Raleigh again, like we've just gone back in the past, right?
Right.
Okay.
Which it would be easy to get. The timing is what I'm
Right,
concerned about.
yeah.
Yes, Alderman Grant.
I think, we're looking at the potential for a very beautiful beach. But if you start doing this kind of parking down there, the people in that area that believe they're getting a benefit right now from this project it is going to be a disaster. I mean, in our little cul-de-sac,
Mhm.
all right, up by us, which is now no parking, they'll put 20 cars in.
I agree.
Okay, I mean, they're parked sideways, they're parked in ditches. We have people trying to pull them out all the time. Trying to, if I lived down there and somebody told me that the quid pro quo in this thing was, I'm gonna have a really nice beach and I'm gonna have 300, 400, 700 cars down in my neighborhood during the summer, you have fundamentally changed that entire area. Okay, I mean, I've been down there, I've walked that beach now, it's a nice beach the way it is. And as much as having this project go forward would be very nice for the town, the people in that area are just going to be dramatically affected by having this kind of parking stuff. I mean, I've seen the postings from people saying, I've got no parking signs in my yard. Well, they're going to find out that doesn't matter.
Right, it doesn't.
Because the town's going to have to require it. And so the people that are upset about having people parking in their yard or having the town take down signs that say no parking are not going to have a choice. There will be parking in front of their house. I think it's a problem. And I think they're, again, and my feeling on this is I really don't, dealing with the court, and it's not that they're acting in bad faith, they're a government agency, all right? But it's the shifting sands. We have a project that they told us they can't tell us the cost on. Now they've changed the parking. Now they, and it's like, at what point? And I was reading the article and I forget what town it was, and maybe somebody could remind me that they turned down the money. Okay,
It was
sim-
in Wilmington
simply-
area.
Right, but simply because they said, we've lost control of our town,
Mhm.
and like I said, I'd have to give it some more thought, but I don't know that I could vote for something where everybody in that area is gonna have, 3,000 of their favorite people show up every weekend during the summer, parking in their yards, parking in the street, and heaven help us if somebody gets hurt down there, you gotta get an ambulance or a fire truck down there. Anyway, enough sermon.
It's a lot of what Rick said, but we've had the thing with the Corps, we've known about the project, we've done all the planning, and then all of a sudden, week before last, it's, you need X number more spaces. Oh, gee, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. Thanks for the complete and timely staff work. Okay, and I'm being very facetious. We've done a parking plan. Our planning director did a comprehensive parking plan a number of years ago with her planning board, and they've spent a lot of time, a lot of effort on it. And I'm not even sure if they're blending any of that into, their mathematical computations and square root of 3. Don't forget to carry the one stuff that they do to come up with these numbers engineering wise. Frustrated with the Corps of Engineers about this. And I'm thinking, to me, in a way, this is a deal breaker. This is a deal breaker on the project.
The side street parking.
And I'll tell you why. About a month ago, Manager Gilbride and I sat down in his office with Mr. Chestnut. And we had a very nice conversation, and we talked about the side street parking, and we provided Mr. Chestnut, Dave provided him with what it looked like to date with the parking company and where the spaces were and where the streets were, there would be no parking, and they were very happy with the no parking. And they were, and he, speaking on behalf of the Ocean City community, we're very accepting of the places in Ocean City where we were actually establishing paid parking. And, just as an aside, Ken Chestnut's a Vietnam veteran. He was a helicopter mechanic in Vietnam. Interestingly, the same year my father was in Vietnam flying helicopters. And one veteran to another, I gave Mr. Chestnut my word that was it. And I'm keeping my word. And that's all I have to say.
Mayor Pro Tem Benson?
Unfortunately, the court and the town are comparing apples to oranges. When the federal plan was approved, the parking part of the federal plan was approved in 2008. The right-of-way parking was part of the plan. We have known about it for, 12 years now. Where the apples to oranges come in is this. Once we decided to go to no side street parking as part of our parking plan, and the town put up no parking signs in the right-of-ways of those side streets, and the Corps sent their assessment team out there to see those no parking signs, they subtracted the right-of-way spaces. If we were to take no parking signs, there would be no issue. We would meet all of the core requirements, except for the additional 20 places that we need in 2 areas, 1 new access and 2 more parking areas to meet the requirements. So you kind of have to look at it like, okay, we've spent, I don't know, $30,000 with our financial consultant trying to figure out how to pay for the project. And on one hand, we're saying, well, we're going to have paid parking, I'll pay for the project. Well, if we're not going to have side street parking in the project, then it's a no-go.
I believe,
Really,
in my opinion,
it's a no-go.
I believe in my opinion, the board is not saying it's a no-go. They're saying that they would prefer the option of a parking lot. If that is at all possible, that would be the safest avenue to go down in Ocean City, and it wouldn't impact the day-to-day lives of the residents that are down there.
I would agree. However, you're going to have to renegotiate the requirement with the Army Corps, because the Army Corps requires X number of parking places within a quarter of a mile of the beach access.
Then that's what we'll
And
have to do.
parking all the cars in one location, it's, unless there's an access within a quarter mile of that parking lot,
Then that's,
then it won't fly with the Corps.
then that's what we'll have to do. Because I also do personally believe with Alderman Grant that if these folks find out that now their whole day and weekend that they get here is all ruined because they can't even get to the beach or in their driveway, or Aunt Sally can't visit because she can't park. I mean, I think it's horrible to have potentially a tax increase on these folks to be able to get the benefit of the project, and then they get short-sighted with people parking in the right of way. So what I would like to do is see if there's a way that we could have staff continue what you're doing. Sir, you're doing a great job. See if we could continue to explore that avenue with Mr. Chestnut. I know that you've already explained to the Corps that we've got safety concerns with that side street parking. I also understand that they're not worried about that, but we have to be. So that's just, I think, where we're at.
Well, the other thing, what Mr. Eads was saying, we could take down all those signs now, but any revenue generated there couldn't be used other than for cost of
it's also-
administering the parking.
Not to interrupt you, that just reeks so much of bad faith. We take the signs down and then what? We get the project approved, then we
No,
put them back up again? I can't, I'm not saying that's not what you're suggesting. What I'm saying is, I am fundamentally opposed to fundamentally changing that area of the town for the people there.
I think
Okay?
we've worked to
And all we've
improve it,
heard
and
all we've heard from the Corps is take it or leave it on everything that we're doing. Okay, and at some point, you gotta say leave it. And I'm not against the project. I think it could be a great project. But if the end result of this thing is, it's like somebody said,
Quality of
let's
life.
build a water park. Okay, so we can pay for this thing. If you go down there and you fundamentally change where those people live, okay, and think about, how many people you're gonna have on your side streets, you're gonna have people in your yards, when those people find out that that right of way is 15 feet into their yard, the stuff, the grass that they've been cutting and everything else, and we're telling them, sorry, that's in the right of way, that's not your property, too bad. That to me is not a fair deal with the people down there.
All right, let's go. Let's
Well,
move on.
my point is somewhat similar to where you were going with the right of way. Is one thing we haven't discussed is all the landscaping
Oh, Jesus.
throughout that area that's been in place in those rights of way. And all that's got to come out. And again, it's on top of everything that Rick talked about, that it's going to change the dynamic of or the personality of the neighborhood. And on top of everything else that you've mentioned, that's going to happen to these folks. And oh, by the way, all that landscaping there, you got 30 days to get it out. Okay, so it's one more. But for anyone listening, I'm not advocating that, please understand, I'm saying it's another example of how sideways this thing has the potential of going if we don't find a better way around it.
Well, and I also believe that they're gonna have to give us some leeway to get it figured out, and we may have to ask Mike, as you had mentioned, for some forgiveness, because they may not be as close to some of the access points as they want, but quite frankly, this should have come up as part of the PPA.
Well,
know,
I think it
didn't.
did. It's just-
It didn't. We didn't talk about this as part of the
They
PPA.
said that we would have to meet the parking requirements as part of the PPA agreement, and we'd have to add 2 new parking areas and 1 new beach access, which has been in the project all along. But I would like to ask Manager Gilbride, has the Army Corps actually filled in that table 013 from their appendix with their new estimate of parking numbers?
No.
So to me, that's the first thing that we need to ask the Corps is give us your actual counts. You say we've taken away many or most of the parking places. Well, you know, in 2008, town officials were allowed to go out with the Army Corps and develop what the parking areas were. But we were not invited when they did their supposedly check on what was present in 221 versus what was present back in 2008. So
That's fair.
we've not had a chance to have our input. So I think we need to go back to court and ask them about how they determine how many
I know.
right-of-way parking places there are in relationship to the table in their in
So
the project.
just to be clear, what we're saying is to direct staff to have the Corps fill out the table as you've just requested. So that they can show us where they've come up with this number, this magic number
Different
that
number.
they have.
Yes.
But I believe the second thing we're still saying is to please continue to work to see if we can get a leased parking lot down there. Okay,
Just, and one thing that, with or without the project, I would say,
that's a good
take a
idea.
look. It's like,
It's just a good
that's more
idea.
revenue for us. So even if we didn't do that project, that would give us more money to do another project on the beach too. So.
Well, right.
Right, so.
But before we start working on a lease, and spending time and money on that, we need to go back to the Corps with this alternative plan. At the same time, we're asking them to give us a number of spaces and see if they would accept a
I think
large
you're
parking lot that's within 1/4 mile of beach access.
I think you're misunderstanding. I think what Alderman Grant was saying is it's a good idea to have a parking lot down there anyway.
Yeah.
So
With or
even
without the
so,
project.
right, take the project aside, let's continue those conversations and see if we can come to some type of an agreement.
But unless the parking lot will count as parking spaces for the project, you know, we don't want to spend money working on a lease until we know.
No, I
that.
think
That's
we-
short money. That's
think
him,
we
that's him
do.
discussing this with
So
Mr.
they've
Chestnut.
already agreed that the parking lot would be more than acceptable. In fact, I think they prefer it as well.
Especially, and plus we can then use, potentially he'll allow us in the lease to charge for parking.
And I believe prior to the time that this 800 some odd parking space came up, we already had the sufficient parking within every half mile or
Mhm.
1/4 mile, however it was, you know, because it started with the big Onslow lot and it worked its way down through
Right.
Knowles Park and Myrtle Drive, and then even the side streets that we did do down in that area, so.
Okay,
May I say just one more thing?
yes, ma'am.
Our our theme is nature's tranquil beauty. And if we have cars parking everywhere, we've lost what our town is.
Mhm.
And here we make this beautiful beach and then we've got cars everywhere. So I truly believe in the lot only. Personally.
Okay.
Especially with no commercial business. I mean, it's not like, if you have a, if you're downtown Surf City and you've got restaurants and bars and all that kind of stuff, maybe you don't mind the crowd so much, but these are people's houses,
Okay, I think we've kind of beat that one. Yes, sir.
My daughter's 14 and I know it predates her, but I've probably been to well over 10 meetings with the Corps, and parking's always come up. This week is the first I've heard
Exactly.
of this. I think there's an appendix that they were talking about, but they have, in my opinion, based on my recollection, made affirmative statements that what Deb had done with our plan was sufficient over and over again.
And I know Surf City's having a struggle as well, trying to meet their parking requirements. So I think we just have to be honest and say, at some point, we just can't keep,
Well, we have been on.
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
But the
Yeah.
kicker here is the Corps decided to do an assessment
Without
in
us.
February without us. And now they're telling us what they have in their appendix wasn't right back in 2008, I guess.
Well, we've done an assessment too,
Changing
so.
the rules.
The Corps is changing the rules, exactly.
Again.
All right, well, I think we can move
Okay,
on
move-
from
sorry.
there. Thank you, sir. What else do you have?
Okay, capital improvement, the fire station. We did in fact have that meeting on the 23rd with the chief and Mr. Benson and the people from Becker Morgan. They provided the chiefs with the questionnaires. The fire questionnaire went in late last week and the police early this week. So they now have the questionnaires filled out and in hand, and they'll be working on the feasibility study. Town hall, I guess a lot of the work going on there has not been evident. And I was chasing the vendor or the architect today to try to get a schedule of just exactly what they're going to do. The 2 weekly reports that I've gotten both indicate that they've been focused on electrical, HVAC, and demolition and reconstruction of doorways and such inside the building. But my understanding when we met with the pre-construction meeting was they were going to start with the roof. I haven't seen any roof materials delivered, and I really would like to see that started because it becomes visible evidence for everyone that we're doing something. So I'll continue to beat on them tomorrow.
Well, they have a dumpster, so that's a good sign.
Oh, yeah, that's a start.
Is it empty?
Might be.
I thought it was just another Connex box for the police department. The Florence project, they'll be finishing up that section from the bridge all the way down to the south early next week, possibly even tomorrow, but I think Monday or Tuesday, they'll be moving to the northern part of the town.
And are they gonna start
They're
two
gonna go
ways?
from both ends and then try to meet in the middle. So other than a few broken crossovers, I haven't heard much feedback from anybody on that. I think everybody's pretty happy with the project.
By the way, your crews were out today clearing the sand from that, which was great. Thank you. The walkways, when you came off to go out to the beach, because they piled them up somewhere. Well, the problem is when you try to move the sand, all it does is collapse on itself if you're trying to make a walkway. The guys were doing a great job out there. It's gonna be a problem until everything settles. So
It's a good problem.
it's a good problem to have. Too much sand? Yes.
COVID-19, and you're probably all aware that we had an exposure at the town hall. Everybody's fine. The exposed person is recovered. And all the rest of us went for tests and we were all negative, so we're safe. Hopefully that'll be our last go around with COVID-19. And I'm almost surprised that it took a year for it to happen, considering how much public contact our people have. So, the ICW crossing, again, looked to me like they were somewhere between Oyster and Port right now. This contractor is a piece of work, but at least they're getting some sand onto the beach right now. Terminal Boyd, I believe I sent out to all of you that Mickey Suggs has arranged for March the 25th
Oh, I didn't see
for
that.
this scoping meeting. So it's supposed to be a lengthy meeting, and we here at the library at 6 o'clock. This will be just our next step in trying to get this never-ending project going.
So who needs to attend that? I mean, I certainly can come. Do you want the board to be here for that? What is,
Yeah, at this point, I don't know.
okay,
I would say that I would think you guys would want to be here at this point.
I think we would want
Yeah.
to, those of us who can attend. So
So
it's
we
the
may need to-
25th at 6 PM?
Yeah, so we probably have to notice it as well.
Let's finish that as a special meeting,
Mhm.
As a special meeting. okay.
right? There will be no action taken, but if we're gonna have a forum there, the safer route would be to notice it. as a special
Now, Fran Way has been told he has to be there to present the project itself. There won't be any actual public interaction at the meeting. I'm
It's
not
for
sure exactly how
education.
they're gonna set that up, but
What day is it?
according to, Ricky,
20
it's gonna be like a 20-minute meeting. I find that like to believe, and I guess we'll see.
Did Mickey send that via email or a letter?
He emailed me today, yeah.
Could you forward that?
Sure, sure.
You skipped Onslow County. Was that intentional?
Oh, yes. No. I really don't know what to say about Onslow County. We offered to them to put the sand berm up in front of the public access beach. They had some interest, provided we paid for it in its entirety. The estimate of the cost was $60,000. I went back and suggested to them that they increase my grant request by $60,000 to cover the cost, because so much of their tourist money last year was never spent. You know, they sponsor things like the fireworks and Holly Ridge and various festivals down in Sherry's neighborhood that were not held because of COVID. So there's spare money in their budget. I never got an answer back on that when I again emailed them, because the contractor was getting close to that area. Again, all I get is crickets.
So do we need to provide you any type of direction from the board as to whether we're okay spending that $60,000 out of our budget or not?
Well, I mean, direction from the board would be okay. I kind of got the sense that nobody wants to spend that $60,000 in review of the way they, you know, treat us in general. If I were going to spend $60,000 myself, I would put a retaining wall on the park.
That's what I was thinking too. Okay,
Yeah.
is everybody in consensus with that?
Was this not the issue that, is there not some FEMA money involved here
There
somewhere that they
was-
got that?
Mhm. There was some
So-
FEMA money too, so we weren't comfortable just,
So why are they not spending, why it's not Onslow County spending Onslow
We've asked
County's
those
FEMA
questions.
money,
Well, they
you know? I mean,
They
this is-
can, they've been approved by FEMA. So they can spend their money and get reimbursed.
that they haven't responded.
Okay,
And so the issue is the contractor's gonna be passed there.
right.
Well, he's not gonna put a retaining wall in, he's a
No.
different contractor, but.
No, I
guess-
meant for the
guess what I'm
sand.
hearing is, and I think Mr. Benson said this, I saw him nodding, is we can't be at their mercy. If we don't put a retaining wall up there, it floods the park that we just did again. So we've got to protect, what you're saying is we need to protect our property whether they do it or not. Is that fair?
Correct.
Right, because I mean, that was a disaster this year, that came
So,
across the street.
but part of
We
the
don't
problem-
need to do it, right?
What we were trying to obtain clarification on as well was if Onslow County received FEMA funds
Mhm.
to establish that berm back there, and we do the work, we don't have a contract with Onslow County to do the work, we're not going to get reimbursed.
Right.
Right.
So that money's just gone.
No, I'm not disagreeing with that. What I'm saying though is the retaining wall is a completely different project.
Mhm. I mean, we
It's
could
not on the beach,
always,
It's across the street.
we could always even, if we had to, and there was a storm coming, I would imagine we could even put sandbags up if we really needed to redirect the water somewhere.
All I'm saying
But-
is that my feeling is we need to protect the park that we just spent all that money.
Nobody
Creative.
disagrees.
And Onslow is not gonna do it for us. So I mean, at least that's the way it looks.
But they're still gonna leave that hole in the berm anyway and put their Hatteras ramp straight through. So it's still going to come through. So if we're not gonna have a solid berm there with the Hatteras ramp going on top, I don't personally think it's worth us spending $60,000 worth of taxpayers'
Oh,
dollars.
no, I'm talking more about looking to retaining. wall,
We need to
something
figure
that
out something for the park
I don't think
Should-
retaining wall is gonna be $60,000 outside, so.
Oh, no.
Oh, he's just saying that if
Something.
we've
Right.
got to spend the money,
You wanna
we'd
do both,
rather
right.
spend it there than on the
Right.
beach.
Exactly, especially repairing their stuff.
Okay, I think that's
I'm
consensus.
sure our DPW superintendent will have a solution for us. Let's see, budget, couple other things, of course, on the 23rd, thank you all for having come out for the dedication of the park to Mr. Peters. We
That was
did
nice.
get Scott got the second sign done, so the both
good.
signs now have Mr.
Good.
Peters Park. And I would again like to thank the staff members for not only the turnout, but for the terrific job they did setting everything up and running it through. Some of you may have noticed that the fire department will be having a fundraising event coming up before too long. And Chad, if you could take a minute and just explain what that's all about, I appreciate it.
So it's kind of y'all might have seen it on Facebook. We were just trying to see, get fillers out, to see if we would have any interest. It's going to be called the NTB Fun Try Challenge, and it's TRY, not TRI. Because well, my hope was to encourage families to come out and not the hardcore athletes to come out. So it's going to be a swim, a stationary bike ride, and then a run. So just a little different than a traditional try. So, and we're gonna do it at BA2 because Onslow County has given us that whole parking lot. Then working with Mr. Gilbride, I've almost got the packet done for the town. I'm waiting for the insurance certificate stable to it so I can turn that in. But we've got a lot of interest in it already, so
I tried to mark interest in
I
it.
know you did. But that's where we're at right now. So if anybody wants to volunteer, we need a lot of volunteers.
I understand that the county sometimes will help staff things of that nature, set up the course for the running course and things like that.
So the county is
Did they say that they
assisting,
would
yeah.
help
Janice at Parks and Rec is great. They're actually saving us some money because they have tents they're gonna let us use instead of us having to rent tents, stuff like that. So Onslow County Parks and Rec has been great to work with on my side.
Other issues, we swore in a new police officer today. We're still understaffed with one fellow on deployment and I guess one in the academy at this point. So it's just those two we have to add, I think.
The one we back off deployment as well.
Good. And the last thing I wanted to mention, Mr. Grant had brought up the budget versus actual report that's in your packages. And wanted us to reaffirm for you, or at least remind everyone that the way the municipal budget and reporting works can be a little bit misleading because there are items that, well, for example, the payment to the USDA loan doesn't occur until next June, or this coming June rather. So to this point, if you were to look at it, it looks like we're doing a terrific job in Fund 30 and not spending any money. These are things that come up periodically. There are items on the expenses or even in the revenues that show us close to 100%, but we won't be spending another dime. So if anyone has any questions about the report, Caitlin or I will be happy to go through it with you and show you where some of those things are. In general, obviously, we're working on the budget and a lot of that will be presented at the retreat, but we expect to come in ahead on revenues and under on budget on expenses. So it looks pretty good.
And
Just to clarify that, generally, when you're looking at a budget, okay, it's something where it's a 12-month thing and it's a rolling average. Like I've got revenues that are gonna come in January, I've got expenses in January, they match. That's not the way we do the budget because of those things. And so that's what I was saying to Dave, is my recollection from past meetings was that we were gonna be ahead in revenue and we we're doing pretty good on expenses. But when you look at that, it's showing, oh my God, we're already at 100% of this, or like, but, and the perfect example is property taxes. They all tend to come in at the beginning. All right. So anyway, but thanks, Dave. I just want to make sure that everybody understood that we're doing okay as a town.
And the only other thing I think I would add is, I believe, Sherry, you sent out a new doodle, so, or whatever that thing is, we have to get you dates, right? Or did we pick a new date?
We need to get new dates because there's a conflict with all 3 weeks that I picked.
Oh, okay. Okay, does everybody have their calendar now with them, or no?
July's probably bad, right?
July. Can we,
When's
I
that
know we
now?
were trying to do it, yeah, what about the week of the 22nd or 29th, if we try out further? Is that too far?
Didn't
So
you
what
just
Wellington-
send?
That's all, I thought we locked down the 22nd, 23rd, and then
Well,
apparently.
we locked it down, except that I
Alderman
had
Leonard
something
wasn't
and I
available.
had put them as not
Oh,
available.
that's fine.
You know, so that, I'm good the rest of the week. I think 24, 25, 26.
Well, the 25th, we've got the core meeting at 6. I don't know if we want to be
Okay.
in here all day and then all night.
Could you do 24 and 25?
I could do that.
What's the problem with the 24th, Sherry?
Someone was missing. I don't remember who it was, but there's someone missing on that day.
We're all accounted for here. So can we do the 24th,
Yes.
20, so the 24th and 25th?
We're in April, right?
No,
No, March.
March.
Okay, because the last ones were April.
I know, that's what shocked me.
I think
too.
we're trying to get it in this month if possible, because you guys were ready before, right?
Right.
Yeah. Are you okay with that?
I'm okay with that.
All right, so why don't we do the 24th, and we're saving the 25th basically if we need it.
That's fine.
Okay,
Right, perfect.
all right, problem solved. Retreat. Okay, Anything
One
else?
last
So
thing,
it's the 24th of March.
yes, sir.
the board packets, Sherry's been trying to get them out as early as possible for you. If you could,
That's fine.
for the April meeting, try to get any information you want in the packet by the 22nd or so of March. Sherry's going to be very busy redoing minutes, so she's going to need a little extra time on the.
And I think, what I'd like to see from that process perspective too is to put it back on us, just send us one reminder and say, I'm getting ready to finalize the package. If I don't hear from you by this day at 5 o'clock, I'm going with what we've
Establish the
got.
protocol, I agree.
Yeah,
Exactly.
that's what we've got, because I think that makes it easy for everybody. We're finalized, we're able to do our homework, we're ready to go.
Okay.
And what about, we talked about, we should be doing some of these revisions, like my issue with the minutes. We should be doing those ahead of time and getting revised.
Yeah, so
board
when the
packet.
package comes out, if a board member sees something that isn't clear or they think needs to be updated to be more clear for the residents or citizens when they're reading it, let's just get Sherry that information right away, because she can a couple days before the meeting, send out an updated packet and just say, this is
Okay.
what changed.
That's fine.
Right.
I think that will help.
Sure.
But Sherry, don't feel bad putting it back on us. Like, if we don't get you what you need in time, snooze, you lose, or just, we're too late.
Can we set a date certain
Sure.
each month,
Yep. So let's use April as an example. So
like a week before?
I think a week,
What works
yeah.
best for you? 10 days before the meeting, a week?
So I've been telling the managers, they get all their reports to me on the Friday before I send out the agenda. So they'll get it to me on Friday. The following Thursday is when the agenda goes out.
Right.
The next Friday is when the packet goes out.
So it's 2 weeks ahead already. Perfect.
Is that
Yeah.
doable?
Yeah, I say to just just send us a reminder, like have it in by this day, which that schedule is fine.
I can't speak for the clerk, but I wouldn't want to be sending bossy emails to you.
I don't think that's bossy. I think it's a general reminder.
Well,
Yeah.
But I'm saying,
Sometimes
if
I
we-
managers,
if we agree on 2 weeks ahead of time.
I
then
think we
that's a
do.
different email than. if
Oh,
you don't
certainly.
Get it in by this date, it's not going on.
You don't like this snooze, you lose? Yeah, no.
Are
I
you
think-
okay with 2
That's
weeks
actually legal
ahead to us?
yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, and I mean, really what we're looking at is just a reminder, just say, just as a reminder, the cutoff for the, agenda items is this day, please get it to me. Now, if something urgent comes up, certainly we all know that we can request something.
So when you send out the reminders to the department heads, you can send out reminders to the board.
Yeah, same time.
And then when are we to send in our changes by? She gets it to us 2 weeks before the meeting, right?
And then I would
And we
say,
have a week.
yeah, I mean, if there's simple modifications, I think we just Was a week satisfactory? I think it depends on what it is too.
But you also gotta have enough time. Let's just say that
For
Tom
other
sends in
changes.
comments,
Yeah.
I send in comments.
Yeah.
And
There
they're
has to be a
completely,
cutoff
no,
date, yeah.
and they're completely different. Then she's got to rectify. You can't give that to her 1 or 2 days before the meeting.
No,
And she's got two different people making this,
I agree.
saying, that's not what I said, that's what he said.
I agree.
So not that I think that happens much, but give her a week, I would think, so that
At
she can
least.
reconcile that,
I agree.
That's what I was trying to
I
get.
agree.
right?
I didn't want her to get it like the day before the meeting.
No.
Yeah.
Oh.
No. Mm. Okay, are we
Okay,
good?
that's it for me.
Okay, open forum. Did we have any comments come in, Sharon? Oh, yeah, okay. All right, public presentation and hearing. We've got the Coastal Area Management Act Land Use Plan, so we need a motion to open the public hearing.
So move.
Second, all in favor? Aye. And I'm gonna turn it over to Ms. Hill.
So the Board of Aldermen held a special meeting on July 21st of 2020 and reviewed the draft at that time. That was for discussion purposes only to solicit input from the Board of Aldermen. I am not sure how you would like for me to present this. I can flip to my link. One second.
From what I remember, Ms. Hill, while you're finding it, I think most of the document was cleanup except for Mayor Pro Tem's concerns just about conservation. I believe. Do you agree with that, sir?
Yeah, I don't think we want to go through all those bullet points again. Because
You
we've had
you
them,
do or do not?
No.
we've had them since November of last year, so I mean, that's old news.
So
So
I'm not,
I'll just make a discussion point.
okay.
I did eyeball the revised land use plan after you told me about the highlights, and you did add a section on coastal resiliency, which is
Mhm.
very important. It's in there. The only other concern I have is that we have strong enough conservation measures in our land use plan so that we don't have development in the marshes.
My comment, let me catch up with you. I'm trying to walk and chew gum, which I don't do very well. If you'll bear with me for one moment, I'd like to bring that document up.
It's okay.
So as it's loading, I do understand your concern on the coastal wetlands. I know that when Brian was here, I said that that was certainly something that I would ask him to, or invite him to comment on. Town staff is not the permitting authority for 404, 401 wetlands. 404 is the Army Corps of Engineers. 401 is, of course, Division of Coastal Management. wetlands and the conservation district are two separate entities. The UDO and the Campbell Land Use Plan already prohibit development in the conservation district.
Mhm.
Once upon a time, the conservation district was an overlay that followed the wetlands as they were delineated as development occurred. So sometime in 2004, 2006, the conservation district became static instead of a floating overlay, depending upon those plats that came out. So if you have property, and my concern has been, and my concern remains, that when you become so restrictive and you have, we already know kind of you can't build on it, right? But if you have property that is zoned residential, whether it's R5 or R20, and Division of Coastal Management or Army Corps of Engineers would otherwise let you develop that property, then are we setting ourselves up for a takings where we've denied any reasonable use of that property or any use of that property? And my recommendation has been to allow Army Corps of Engineers to continue their review and permitting process, and Division of Coastal Management allow them to do theirs, and for us to continue, to continue the policies that we have in the conservation district. And when you say that you'd like a strong policy statement about conservation of coastal wetlands, you're not giving me explicit direction to go there, particularly when I'm already having trouble wrapping my head around it, or trying to understand when we have a Condi, but also that the Condi policy statement be added to prevent rezoning by future boards. So we do not allow rezoning of Condi property. That's already in there.
It's already failed multiple times when it's come in front of the board.
Yeah.
Yes. But
Well,
Even by a formal.
it has to.
But I guess, but when,
I can't deny, and once again, town attorney, correct me if I'm wrong, if a citizen comes in and requests a rezoning application.
If we're gonna talk about potential litigation, that should be in closed session, but suffice to say, I concur with what Ms. Hill has already said.
She had to be a taking.
I can't deny someone, I don't feel comfortable denying
We
someone
don't-
their administrative due process.
Right.
but it's
The
my
core and CAMA govern 404 and 401.
right,
Our Condi is what it is. If you want to expand Condi, that's one thing, but if there's something already, you run the risk of an inverse condemnation. You expand Condi, but I think, as Ms. Hill correctly points out, that it's better to leave those permitting decisions to the federal government and the state for those
But
classifications.
here's the question I have about Con D. Because it was challenged on the property 3 or 4 years ago. And the board denied the permit request. But isn't it possible that in 10 years, if the makeup of the board is such that they wish to change the Con D policy, they can vote a majority vote to change the Con D policy?
sure. They could also vote to change the land use
And,
plan.
and if you tried to pass an ordinance prohibiting that, it would be void of initiative. You can't bind.
You can't bind futures.
Right, but my point is, we need other statements in our policy.
But what we're saying is a future
support
board,
conservation. And here's one idea I did give David Landis when they're working on it, and that's a conservation easement, where a person takes their land and puts it in a conservation easement, and then it can't be developed.
That
That's
would
a
be,
personal, a
right, that
personal
would be a
decision.
voluntary.
Voluntary.
That would be a voluntary thing to where that I could do that as tax credits, and I have worked with people.
You can do
and I
that today.
discussed that before. But I can't twist somebody's arm behind their back and, force them into a conservation.
But
easement.
our land use plan could say the board, or we encourage conservation issues for those that are interested in preserving their land.
Did you miss the part where we talked about how this wicked board that's gonna come in 10 years from now and do away with all this is also going to rewrite the land use plan? I mean, putting anything in the land use plan doesn't etch it in stone.
And I
But
think,
Okay,
I
I
just,
mean, and my point is that, you know, in your hypothetical situation, Mike, you know, what we're able to do here, and you can't put any more teeth into it by adding a section or word or changing wording in a land use plan, because future boards come and pitch that to the curb too.
and I just
I
want to make,
understand that, but the example of the conservation easement could not be changed by a future board. Once a person puts their property on.
but they could do that today.
That is,
They
that
want-
is the subject at hand.
Can we encourage that in our land use plan? That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, certainly you could have a statement that we encourage it, but that would have to be a citizen initiated
Sure,
conveyance.
Exactly,
We
'cause they
can't
own the land.
mandate the conveyance.
yeah, they own the land.
I get concerned about having things in there that are non-binding, that are statements about how this board feels about something today. You know, I don't know, and like I said, I get very nervous if there's any kind of taking of land. I get very nervous because, you know, the stuff we can afford now, we sure can't afford. I'm just saying, but that's, you know, I would get very nervous about that. And again, I think it's a bad idea to try to bind future boards in any way. And having a statement that we encourage something, we could put a statement on our website that we encourage environmentally sound things, or to quote my cohort, it's nature's tranquil beauty. I think we're saying that stuff. I think, but trying to put teeth in something when there's no teeth you can put, it just doesn't
And
make sense. to me.
When I read the land use plan, I think it's very clear that Condi is Condi. I mean, you're not developing conservation land. It's not coming out of Condi to put a high rise in. It's Condi. We've had conversations over the years about when other government agencies take the lead and we are trying to add restrictions on top of that. And previous boards have felt that that's not a good idea, that those folks specialize in, say, wetlands. That's what they do. We don't do that. So for us to try and put additional restrictions on what their recommendations are, it puts this board at risk as well, I believe.
That's the rule
Feel
of unintended
uncomfortable doing
consequences.
that.
Stay in your lane.
I said that
Right.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's the rule of unintended consequences.
Yeah.
You change something, it's something else. Fine.
And it's already covered by that.
Mhm.
But we could definitely put the statement on the website.
We definitely could.
I'm
Encourage.
fine with that.
Yeah. Is that okay with you, Mike?
That's fine.
Okay.
And also let us not get away from the purpose and intent of this Campbell land use plan. There's a formula that Division of Coastal Management has, and there are policies and there are implementing actions that they want you to take. So, you know, like I said, it's not that I disagree with the intent of what you were saying. I certainly support the preservation of wetlands, but, and I don't want you to think that I'm an obstructionist and scrolled by and just ignored it, because if you'll also, when Landon and I read through these comments, he had a copy, I had a copy. We read through each paragraph. And so I read your paragraph, and then I read comments by Alderman Grant, and then I read comments by Alderman Meyer. They're conflicting, so they're conflicting, and also the statement was ambiguous. Like, I know what your desire was, right? So the ones that we had something concrete that we discussed, we went in and changed, and certainly include language for Camp Lejeune, Ocean City, and some of the other ones. So, if you want, I think that's probably good by now. I'm not sure where my hard copy went.
I still like the idea of just doing something on the website and then
Yeah, I don't think we need to go through this. Really. Too much scrolling, though. It's not worth it. Don't
So
bother.
are there any other comments or
Right there.
questions from Ms. Hill?
Well,
There's,
that's what-
there's the thing, I think.
Okay,
It's really not too much scrolling. That's what I wanted to show you that, when you go down those pages. That's an example, that's what we put in for Ocean City, and I can read it. You guys can read as well or better than I can.
There's one down by the multi-use path study too. Was included in the Lejeune one.
No, I don't think we need to go through it yet.
I think we're good.
You good?
any other comments or questions for Ms. Hill from the board? So then I believe what we do is we close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
I would like to ask the town clerk if she received any comments, on the Camel Land use plan from any of the citizens.
So you need a motion to approve the Camel land use plan as presented with changes.
And then what we'll do is, it gets forwarded to the CRC at the next meeting for certification.
So moved.
Okay, so we have a motion. We have a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Just
Okay.
call the roll.
Clerk, could you call roll, please?
Mayor Pro Tem Benson, Mayor McDermott,
Aye.
Alderman Leonard,
Aye.
Alderman Grant.
Aye.
Alderman Meyer.
She called me.
Yeah, no,
I
she
know-
knows she can't vote.
Right, because I would only get to vote if there's a tie, but I still support that. Yes, Ms. Hill?
May I make a second request, and I'm sorry about this. It's,
Notes for.
Yes, sir.
To adopt the resolution of the Board of Aldermen that was, to adopt the resolution that was attached to the staff report.
So you wanted to move that?
Update the vote to, update the motion to say adopt the resolution that's attached to the staff report.
Which adopts the Camel Land use plan.
So moved.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Everybody said aye.
I can't see it.
Oh, you can't see Mike? Yeah.
Aye.
Okay.
Madam Clerk.
Come on, do deposition. You're not letting it just nod.
Are we good to move on?
Mhm.
Okay. The next is the consent agenda, and I believe what we're doing is just pulling out the minutes from
Mhm.
2-4
Yep.
for that one. Okay. Anything else on the, do we have approval of the consent agenda other than that modification?
I move that we approve. With some modification.
Okay.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right, new business. Again, Ms. Hill with the Southeastern North Carolina Regional Hazard Mitigation Plan.
I thought Chief. Howard was up first. Am I wrong?
Mm-mm. He's second.
So she and your second.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Throw him under the bus.
So. There we go. I think it was before last January. We started participating in the Eastern North Carolina Regional Hazard Mitigation Plan, joint meetings with Pender County, New Hanover, Brunswick, Onslow, and municipalities. Having passed the state's review, the plan is currently in FEMA, either being reviewed or getting ready to get approved. We can go ahead, the Board of Aldermen can go ahead and adopt the plan this evening. And we also solicited public comment to capitalize on CRS points. And we did that through an online meeting on January the 28th, which was promoted through our website and Facebook. So staff recommends that the board adopt the resolution adopting Southeastern North Carolina Regional Hazard Mitigation Plan. And that resolution should be attached to your package as well.
49,
Is it anybody?
page 49.
I'm getting there. I'm on 42.
Technology is so wonderful.
We need to go back to having the comments and the
Mhm. Yeah, I think we'll make that suggestion.
Can I ask you a quick question? What
Yes,
is-
sir.
Deb, we're not committing to anything, one that we don't have to, or binding the town in a way that you're uncomfortable with, is that fair?
That's correct. This hazard mitigation plan, we did do them in partnership with the county a few years back, and then there was moved by the state and by FEMA to go to regional plans. It's much more cost effective.
Okay.
So the state pays for a contractor. In our case, it was ESP. And they work with a group of counties and do this all in one shot. The adoption of this hazard mitigation plan is one of the prerequisites for receiving federal funding on a lot of emergency applications.
Okay.
So it's very critical. It's important from my perspective on CRS, but it's critical from the town's perspective in receiving funding.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Do we need to go around? No. Does anybody want to make a motion? There's a resolution in the packet as Alderman Grant said on page 49. Does anybody want to make a motion?
I move that we adopt the resolution on the hazard mitigation.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor? All right, let's see what's next here. All right, let me see what I got. I'm going back and forth between two, so now it is,
It's bizarre.
yeah, Chief and Ms. Hill for the ordinance adopting the 2018 North Carolina State Building Code for fire.
Take it away, Chief.
All right, so basically, need the board to adopt the 2018 code. They moved some appendices, they created some new ones, they deleted some, and when that happens, we have to adopt it to make it enforceable. And once, if y'all adopt it, I have to send it to the building code council for their approval. That way it's enforceable. If that makes sense.
The code itself has auto adoption language, so you don't have to worry about, between 2012 and 2018, when the when the state adopts new building code, i.e. including the fire code, that's already in there, so.
Yeah, this is just the appendices that they had in the rear of the book. I've got 3 copies at the station. You're welcome to come out and read it. If you have nothing.
Is it like this?
That's not.
Is there Is there a parking appendix?
There is. Fire apparatus, ingress, egress.
Is there anything
That was bad,
glaring
right?
that changed?
No, ma'am. And, the one moved from a chapter, as well, I was just talking about the fire apparatus ingress. They moved it from the book to the appendices, which were, is already enforceable. They added a couple new ones, but nothing major is going to affect North Topsail Beach. We're not getting some cryogenic factory.
So we need a motion.
Staff is requesting that the board adopt the ordinance to amend section 8-1 state code adopting the 28 North Carolina State Building Code Fire Code. And I guess we should probably have, I thought we changed that, or I changed that, but it's in part 1, you notice where it's the appendices. I'd like to probably strike through everything after state code adopted, where it says adopting the 2018 Carolina State Building Code Fire Code.
Mhm.
I'd like to strike through that part because I don't want it to be misconstrued that we're going back from auto adoption to specifically the 2018 fire code. I think that might be confusing.
Okay. Okay. Any questions for the chief? No. Do we have a motion?
It would be a motion to adopt the ordinance as amended.
Okay.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
Alderman Benson,
Aye.
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 we pass.
Oh, sorry, one last thing. We are doing our smoke detector campaign, so.
I saw that.
Yeah.
If that smoke detector is older than 10 years old, or you know someone, let us know.
Yeah.
So the one from 2000 should be replaced, is that what you're
Yes,
saying? Yes.
they should be.
All right.
You have to be a Newcastle Beach resident.
Unfortunately, you do,
Property owner or resident?
sir.
You mean property owner?
Yeah, property, you can be a rental house, it doesn't matter. to
Right, I'm
us.
saying resident, could be interpreted as voting person
Yeah.
versus,
Right.
the 3,000 people that have houses here.
Okay, so the next item on here is the beach access enhancements. I just put this on here because I wanted to be able to talk through two items as a board and get some feedback and direction. What I've seen in a few of the other beach towns, I think the folks enjoying the beach appreciate. One is just the doggy bags, quite frankly, at the different beach accesses. And I don't know if we put them everywhere, we just put them in a few places, but let's just start with that one and see if anybody has strong opinions one way or the other as to whether we could provide that for our residents. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I thought about this and I know the argument is, well, they'll use it for picking up shells. I don't really care. I mean, what are they, a penny a piece? The big thing is gonna be whether our people are okay with making sure that things, the last thing you wanna do is put them out there and they don't have stuff in them.
Mhm.
But I don't care whether people catch shells and whatever. I notice, with the trash bags and everything else, because I carry my bucket every time I go for a walk, as you know, to pick up stuff. I just think having something else out there. Now, the downside is if people throw them away and there's trash in those things. But you see this more and more, and we have a lot of dogs on the beach.
Yeah.
There is one at Beach Access 2 that the
Okay.
county put there, I believe. I noticed it when I
Okay.
was there.
I've never noticed
So
that.
it basically has a thing, doggy bags, the bags, and then it has a receptacle to put the doggy bag, the full doggy bag in there. So.
Do you have any concerns?
No, good with it.
Alderman?
Yep.
Okay. Does staff have any concerns with the rollout of that?
No, not particularly. We have a lot more beach accesses than Surf City, for example, and they put them at about every second or every third beach access. And I talked to Scott about whether or not we could do this without too much heartache and aggravation, and make sure they're filled and get them put up, but Scott had no problem with it either, so.
And I have no issue, and certainly please speak up if you want to space them out every so many accesses. I just think having some out there is better than not having anything.
We're just in staff's discretion.
Yes, sir.
Right, definitely
Yeah,
a
no problem.
parking lot one.
Oh, yeah. So.
Yeah, the big parking lots for sure. The other item, I'm not sure if we might be covered with just the big sign that we've got coming over the bridge, but I know some of the other beach towns have really tried to get some flags out there for riptides. And I'm not sure how they keep up with that. I don't know if somebody's just watching the news in the morning and deciding it's gonna be a red day, or I don't know.
Well, we talked about that as well, and that does present a problem for staff, well, for a number of reasons. First of all, who decides
Right,
when flags should be up? What happens if somebody drowns when there's no flag up?
yeah.
Are we then liable?
We're not liable, but it can create a liability risk. Same thing with lifeguards. Chief, you were in Carolina Beach, so you remember, no good deed goes unpunished. If you want to do my recommendation, and I didn't mean to commandeer the conversation. If you want to do some public awareness about, be careful of riptides. But once you start going with a flag system, if there is a riptide and it's not flagged, you could be looking at walls.
Doesn't Surf City have them? Or maybe it's Topsail? Somebody has them.
Anyone
Surf City does have it, but they have a beach patrol. They have a extra staff during the summer to actually patrol the beach as lifeguards.
But I don't think it removes any of the
No.
legal, right? Because it's
Well,
probably a high school kid.
There's no duty to do it, but if you do actively argument would be, and we defended Carolina Beach on a few drowning cases. I don't want anybody to get hurt, but you have lifeguards out there at this one particular day that they left for inclement weather, same concept with rip tides. Or rip currents. If there is a rip current out there, but you don't have it flagged red or whatever color we would use, then the argument would be, well, we thought it was safe to go out and swim.
So right
It's
now,
a
what we,
negative inference.
so right now, what we have is when you come over, coming ready to come over the bridge, it'll say like, watch for rip currents or something. I'm fine with that if that's where we want to.
Public education, be careful, be
Okay.
prudent.
Don't we have a sign by you on the 4-wheel drive each time?
You agree?
I don't know. No, I'm with you, and I think that before we even began the discussion, the whole issue of liability.
Mhm.
you know,
This is the way the world is.
No, and listen, I'm fine. I just wanted to bring it up as a discussion point to see if anybody felt we needed to do anything
We do
different.
have signs on most of our coasts for public beaches.
Mhm.
It shows what a rip current is and to be careful. I don't know if they're everywhere. They're on a lot.
Isn't
fine,
there
but,
some
you
in
know,
the
the
4-wheel
issue
drive
is-
beach? I swear I thought I saw a sign for rip currents.
Well,
before.
We
I
just tell
think-
people not to swim out there.
I
There are
think
no
we
swimming
have-
signs out there.
I do also believe we have with the Rotary that had provided us those life-saving devices. I think that sign might say something. And actually, when I was at the Rotary just a couple weeks ago, they did ask if we need any additional devices. Are we doing okay with them? So I don't know if we take them in and out or how we are, but if we could check on those before the end, before summer hits and.
That was another case of mixed feelings when I spoke to Chad about that. Are we giving people a full sense of security by putting them out there? Personally, I didn't see a problem. At least it gives them something to do, but I don't know, want to address that at all, Chad? Or?
Well,
Did anybody use them?
so, well, not that we're aware of, but when I got here last year, we literally only had like 6 accesses that still had the signs up.
Mhm.
So Mr. Gilbride and I discussed it, I believe. It might have been Mr. Chadwick. I can't remember. I think I don't know, somebody.
They all
And
look alike to me.
We only put them at the sign areas because we didn't want to get into some situation.
I was against it when we did it.
And I was against it when I got here because of the same reason, because we do a big
And the
push on
devices,
our.
because you could
Yeah.
actually cause someone to drown that wouldn't otherwise drown.
That's exactly right.
Exactly.
We want to encourage people not to go in the water after someone, but let the help get there and do it. Not encourage people to try to go out there and help someone.
Then you're endangering the professional that's now got to deal with 2 or 3 people out. I mean, again, I'm not trying to be callous. I'm just saying that people get a fault. They're on vacation, and most people relax, if you know what I mean, on vacation. So their inhibitions are down, and they see flags, or they see lifeguards, which we don't have lifeguards, or they see life-saving devices. They have this sense of security that they may not otherwise have, and I think it creates more of a danger than it not being there at all.
Agreed.
So then maybe I could just recommend that we put that on the agenda for next month. Let's talk about what we've got out there as far as those devices and have more of a board discussion on that.
Or we could do it at the board retreat.
Oh, yeah. We
Yeah,
could
Good
do it
board
at the
retreat
retreat.
discussion. really,
Okay,
a couple
that's
weeks,
fine.
think about it. We can beat it to that there.
That's fine too.
Madam Mayor.
Yes, sir.
I want to tell you, we do a big, because I follow the rip currents, obviously. We do a big social media push, like last summer when the water would just get terrible, we would just flood social media on our Facebook page.
Okay.
That seems to be what everybody's using now anyway, sitting on
It
the
is.
beach regardless.
Mhm.
So that might be something we want to.
And is that on the fire Facebook
Yes,
page
yes,
or, because we should put it on the town's Facebook page?
Town
too.
page,
But at the end of the day, again, I'm not trying to be callous, you cannot legislate for enforcement.
No.
Right.
I agree.
Mhm.
Okay.
No, good point.
All right. Okay, so those are my items. Let's see what we got next year.
Phase 2 grant.
Yes, sir. Use of state phase 2 grant, Mayor Pro Tem Benson.
We talked about this a little bit last time. Fran was on the board meeting last time. He was involved in the discussion. Alderman Meyer and I have been working to come up with a proposal to use the state grant of $1.5 million to build a berm along the ocean side of Topsail Reef condominiums. There was a very significant dune system and berm there from phase one that completely washed away, as you all are aware. And what you have in your packet is sort of a justification of why we think that money can be used at the reef. The legislation, the line item in the state budget says phase two. However, the money is being used to restore a berm, not the dune, but a berm that was badly eroded through natural processes. Okay. Where are we going to use the money in the next 5 years if we don't use it now?
The money, first of all, the money was the phase two tied to that money, as I remember, and as I've discussed with the former mayor who actually went to Harry Brown to get the money.
Yeah.
It was for the second phase of the terminal groin. And specifically, phase two of the terminal groin was the dredging of the inlet and backfilling the groin area with sand, because we all know we can't use state funds to build a groin. So the project was broken into phase one and phase two. Okay. Phase two in this case is referencing not phase two on the ground via the CP&E 5 phases of the town that they've broken up on the map, but it was the second phase of the terminal groin project.
It was a post-construction of growing
Now,
erosion project. It's
Yeah.
not part of the project.
the other issue is that I've got this email that Dan sent me, and it goes back, and interestingly enough, it was from 3 years ago today, March the 4th, where he's sent this email to Harry Brown, Connie Wilson, Steve Foster, and he CC'd me as well. And in this email, specifically on page 2, the second paragraph, talking about the cost of the construction of the groin and inlet dredging is estimated to be $12 million, $6 million for the groin and $6 million for the dredging. It says the town has state appropriated funds of $1.5 million towards this project. Harry Brown got us that money in 3 chunks of $500,000 a year appropriated over 3 years for that project. And my concern with not using it for that project is when we go back to the state to ask for money for something in the future, and we're not being good stewards because we've taken money that was specifically for something and using it for something else.
Well, this is an interesting revelation to me, because this is the first time I've ever been aware of that information. And I read the state budget, it said phase two, so I naturally assumed phases 1 through 5. So I'll withdraw my argument, because I agree with you. We should put it, if we can. Of course, it will be against state law right now.
I hate to
because,
be
you
the
know,
bad guy here,
you know the way-
and we're friends, and a lot of my friends live in the reef, but
Right, no, no,
I
it was
just,
originally made for that.
I am
That's
so
what it-
concerned about the downstream backlash that we could end up.
Yes, but the other
You
thing
know.
about we're still gonna have to get legislative language to allow state funds to be used in construction of a hardened structure.
But that's,
Right, but that's not part of
but
this
see, the
discussion.
reason this is the
I
way
agree
this
with you
is.
100%, but I
Okay,
don't know.
and-
That's not for construction.
No,
So-
this is for the second phase
I
of the
understand
project,
that.
which is the
But it's-
dredging.
But that
I'm just
is,
saying, there's gonna be minutes of this meeting that people will be reading 20 years from now, and I wanna make sure we're clear, that money is not for the actual construction of the hardened shell.
Right.
No,
no,
It is to place sand
From
at
the
the north end of North Topsail Beach.
So my,
Yeah, and it's to backfill
To dredge and place
and
it.
backfill, yeah.
I
Now,
And I would like to
keep
use,
going.
I would like to use the shallow draft fund.
Well,
Tap into that. We don't have to pay 25% of the cost of that. So yeah, that would be a win-win situation.
two things. One, when Joanne and I were in the meeting in Jacksonville with Phil Shepherd and Tim Moore and Harry Brown and the whole cast of characters from the local Republican Party, Phil Shepherd, it was either Phil or Harry, brought the issue up about getting a change to some legislation.
think so.
I think it was Phil, to allow us to use state money to get an exception for North Thompson Beach.
Great,
And we've got to keep working on him.
great.
So Tom, I want to go back to the 500, 500, 500.
Right,
I don't believe we receive any of those funds until we get to that phase of the project. Is that
correct.
correct?
That's
So
correct.
we just need to somehow keep an eye that that
Mhm.
money doesn't get lost somewhere.
But at the same time, I think we may, and Dave, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we may still have a little bit of money somewhere that we might have forgotten about. Resource Institute money,
Mhm.
the one
Well,
point
as far
six
as I
six.
know, that 1.6 went into Matthew,
Okay,
extended.
I
Matthew.
think it
As far
did
as
go
I
into
Okay.
understand.
Matthew.
was hoping it hadn't, but I thought I'd ask.
Well, as far as I understand it, we did. We added
I
to
think that's what we did. We
Trying,
extended the
trying.
Matthew project up. I'm looking at Caitlin.
Yeah,
Yeah,
if there's anything extra, put it to the fund balance.
Yeah,
okay.
Can I just add one thing with everything I said? When I looked at this, my reaction to it was very simple, and that is, just like Mike and I have been trying to work on a capital projects forecast and plan, I really am uncomfortable with doing one-off things where we spend money, but I think it's got to be part of an overall plan. Because we know, when Mike and I have talked about this a lot, we need to have money in the buckets to be able to do these projects and beach projects. Right, let's figure out what we're gonna do, how much money we need, and start planning that way. Because all these things are critical to us. I'm glad we're finally having something on the groin, meeting, because, I've been here for a little while, and it's like, all that's been is talk, and nothing else, and maybe we can move it forward. All I'm saying is, I think that we gotta do a plan together, just like we're doing the capital plan. So it's gonna come down to money.
and to just to echo that, one of the things in this email from 3 years ago, in order to restore all the beaches inside NTP requires that we develop and execute a new engineering and financial plan.
There you go.
That was 3 years ago today, written on a Sunday. And
Well,
we gotta get moving.
I can say that the reef, something needs to be done quickly because it's going away.
It's degrading.
Yes, it's bad. And I'm not sure we're gonna get any of that sand from
Yeah,
they say that they're gonna make it down there, but I don't know.
well,
It's designed to, right?
Mhm.
truth be told also, though, the quality of that sand is going to be better than nothing, but not much. We saw when we did phase one and we did the 18 foot, 6 feet,
Right.
18 feet, all that cubic 100,000 million bazillion cubic yards of sand out on the north end. As it was done and Marinex had moved further down past the reef, the Corps was also doing a maintenance dredge, a navigational dredge project at the same time. So they were actually, their contractor was actually putting sand out in front of the sand and on top of the sand that we had dredged. And by this time, up at the point, it's all nice and smooth. The bulldozers have made it nice. We got a great beach and a great dune line and everything. And then the Corps comes along and pumps out the stuff from the inlet or from the crossroads.
Mhm.
It was a windy day and the stuff was laying out and you can see the wind blowing and it's blowing the sand from the Corps project, but the sand from the inlet dredge isn't moving at all because and it was a real night and day difference and a real good example of, and Tom Payne from Marinex, we're standing there and he says, what we call that in the industry? We call that sugar sand.
Well, and the only
It's
other,
gonna be better than nothing, but sorry to interrupt, to finish my point, it's gonna be better than nothing, but I'd be concerned because I don't think it's gonna stay there very long. And I don't think it's gonna offer that much protection.
Well, I was gonna say, until you alter the shape of that shoreline in front of Topsail Reef, if that's even possible, and that's a question for Fran.
Mhm.
I don't think any sand you put in front of those sandbags is going to stay.
Well, we're not expecting sand to stay there all the time. We need the groin to actually make the change. But we have like 3 or 4 years before that's actually gonna happen. And those 3 or 4 years, I'm really worried about.
And I would honestly have to say, unless the legislative change happens to help us afford the groin, I'm still not even sure, back to your point, how we are going to pay for something.
Well, what we need.
So,
to do
and I
first-
know we're off topic, this is a
No,
retreat
because,
item, but
yeah, let's add that to the retreat too. Let's talk
Yeah.
about the groin and the beach,
the beach, we typically talk about the beach
But-
plan.
but, the thing of it is, we need to continue to pursue the permits
Mhm.
as we are. And I know the permits, reading Dan's email was really kind of depressing today because, here we are, he said, oh, we'll probably get the permits in fourth quarter 19.
Yeah.
And I know Dan was ambitious about some things, but at the same time, we're just now getting around to having the meeting, the virtual meeting, and we just need to keep pushing the core and pushing everybody so that we'll see this at some point in time.
That is not because of the town.
Well, I
No,
understand that, and this was pre-Florence,
Oh, I
okay?
Yeah.
This was March, Florence hit that
And
year.
COVID.
And we had COVID, we've had a lot of legitimate obstacles thrown in our way. But it doesn't change that it's been 3 years.
And I
I agree,
don't-
Tom. I just, for the
Yeah.
public's benefit and the
Yeah.
benefit of the minutes. Whatever the core needed, we were there.
Oh,
And,
absolutely.
and I certainly don't disagree with continuing the permit
Yeah.
process, but I am extremely concerned about how to pay, just like the federal project. It'll just be something else that, again, we need to plan and
Sure.
figure
Sure.
out.
I mean, it's
and
a
it-
matter of not get, my point is for us to not get discouraged and to not just throw up our hands and walk away. Or say it gets too hard, or there are too many obstacles, or we won't be able to pay for it. Let's work the permits. Let's
Sure.
work the permit. I mean,
You don't ask, you don't get it.
So the follow on here is Alderman Leonard, how do we get that information that you related verbally into the town record so that the town manager? So we have this as part of the history of our,
Yeah, can you just forward the email?
I'll forward Sherry the email.
Yeah.
because I mean, like I
That's a
said,
good
this
point,
is
Tom.
new information.
Yeah, no,
tonight.
absolutely. What I'll do is, Sherry, I'll give you this copy and then I'll forward it to you electronically. Okay?
Okay, all right, we're gonna move on. The next item
Oh,
is continuing business now. So we've got resolution related to LGC contract. I don't think we have an update on that today. Do we have Mr. Carter on the line at all?
We have somebody and they're not on there now. We had Fran.
We don't even have a thing for Fran.
Fran was there for
We
a
missed
minute when
that.
we
He
came
was on
He
too.
was on the
in. Was
list.
it Fran?
Might have lost
Just
him.
us.
Okay.
Nobody-
I don't believe we have an update to the contract for the LGC.
I was on the phone with Mr. Carter today for another town, on another matter, and he didn't mention it.
Okay.
Normally he would mention it.
Okay.
There's nothing in the back of the resolution.
And then also the financial plan, that's just a placeholder. And again, we don't have Mr. Carter, but I don't believe we've made any changes to that at this particular
Well,
point.
I will say this, I provided Mr. Gilbride, actually, also the whole board in response to Alderman Grant's questions.
Mhm.
The statute and procedure for establishing this service districts. I just set them up with another town, and I have those go live. And I'll get to you. It's not that difficult of a process, but you do have to cross the Ts and dot the I.
If I could just add one thing, I did not bring it with me tonight because I thought we could do it at the retreat. Part of the thinking behind what Brian responded back to is we're looking at things like with Mr. Carter that says something as simple as, he's talking about the model he's got is we're raising money on the first day that we have to pay, right? We're gonna have years of collecting money before that. And so that's why I think Brian coming back and saying, look, if you raise money, and whether we believe the Corps is gonna do it or not, you know, even if they promise to do it, all right, if we raise money, we gotta figure out what happens if it doesn't go forward. We gotta figure out how much money we're gonna collect before it starts. Because and also, and you saw, and that's why I appreciated your comments back, are things like, okay, so if we collect the money and the Corps backs out, can we still use it for a beach project down in that area for the people that paid the taxes? You know, those are things that we need to address before we, you know, and frankly, the model looks like if we start collecting money early, all right, you can reduce their pennies by about a third. You know? And
Yeah,
so
no, that's all great information and I do believe we're going
I
through
think
all
that's
of
gonna
that.
be up front, but I think that's part of our planning, and I think your response was good on those things, because that's the kind of stuff we have to get out in front of.
Right, and they were excellent questions. And at some point, perhaps we could do an FAQ for the public to see that. I mean, it's all public record. There's no statutes outside.
Yep.
But it for some reason, the Corps does not. When we have a reserve built up, we can hire a private contractor to do, as long as it falls within the purview of erosion control, flood works, like I said. you know.
And how we set them up. That's
And
the
it
big
is a
thing.
true possibility too, because there were some other projects that didn't move forward. Now, I know they weren't new starts, but I mean, down in the Wilmington area, there were some projects that the
Right.
federal government did not fund this year, so. Okay. The next item on here was capital improvement update. I think Mr. Gilbride did give one during his update. Do you have anything that you want to add to that, Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah, the only thing I would add is we were trying to get some estimates of costs because we're doing our budget. We're going to be needing to come up with some money to build the new public safety building. And so we did receive we received the cost of several fire stations and police stations that Becker Morgan constructed, both North Carolina, even some I think in Delaware or somewhere. But what's going to determine our general estimate of the cost is once the police chief and fire chief get their estimates in of how much square feet they need for the different functions that they're going to want in the new public safety building, then we can start coming up with a general idea of how much it's going to cost. That's all.
Okay. And then I don't, Mr. Gilbert, I think you covered town hall, the truck hall and paid parking in yours. Do you have anything? Okay. All right.
Skip Cap, Cobra.
Oh, Cobra,
Skip
I'm
Cobra.
sorry.
I wish I had more to report, honestly. I did talk to Ray Celeste today. The congressional bill has been drafted. Next step for the congressional bill is that he is trying to find out through Mike McIntyre and Stephanie what the status is on the drafting of the Senate bill. Because I think what they want to see them do is get launched simultaneously or closely there too. He didn't have anything. He'd been trying to get a hold of the other side, the senatorial side. I called Stephanie today. I got her voicemail in a full mailbox. I sent her a text, asked her to call me. She's usually pretty good about that. I haven't heard back from her yet. So right now we're waiting on trying to find out what the status of the drafting of the bill on the Senate side. I'll take that for tomorrow or next week. I'll call Josh Boland, who used to be Congressman Jones's legislative assistant. He is now with either Burr or Tillis. I think Tillis. If I can't get an answer, I'll go that route. Just call him direct.
Just a question on the health side. Is that the Natural Resources Committee?
I'm not sure where it's going to go. It's going to get heard by Fish, Wildlife, and Insular Affairs. Is who does the maps. Actually, it's Fish and Wildlife. You wouldn't think that, but it is. And the mapping department, just as an aside, in Fish, Wildlife, and Insular Affairs is 3 people. Because all 3 of them were there when we went up a few years ago on this. So right now, that's kind of where things are. I wish I had better news or more news, but that's it. That's all we got.
All right, attorney's report.
Briefly, I spoke with Senator Lazaro last week regarding legislating to stagger our election. Resignations or vacancies that I've appointed, as it sits now, the next municipal election would be a complete vote of everyone. He was, we met the deadline, he put the placeholder in with bill drafting. Tomorrow, I'm going to send him a proposed draft. They'll chew it up there. They have a whole lawyers that do it. I'm going to try to track the original intent of the charter. That'll be the easiest way to get it through. So we're in the pipeline.
Okay.
I don't know what they'll end up doing, but I'm confident that the General Assembly understands the need for us not to have a complete full potential of a complete full change of the
Every 4
board.
years.
Every 4 years.
Right. I mean, we need some continuity in the few seats. So that's my report. Unless you have any questions.
I had, the one question I had, and I had mentioned this to you, Brian, I wanted to bring it up just as food for thought. I did not take the mayor's seat at the time of the election because we had some turmoil and transition here in North Topsail Beach. The only thing I was thinking is if I'm able to extend by whatever those months were, that might be able to provide some continuity to all the other seats changing or not changing. I don't know what will happen.
I would need a board consensus on that, Mayor. I don't mind doing that. I mean, I was here, I witnessed it.
I don't know if it will help or not help.
March of 2020, I think.
But then the whole election then is kind of off kilter then.
Well, yeah, I think it just,
Well, and another thing too, according to Senator Lazar, and again, I want to publicly, and hopefully this will make 2 minutes, thank him for he called me the day of the deadline. He was very gracious, very helpful, willing to help. But what I had planned on doing, absent different direction from a was to mirror, if you will, our charter, because it's going to be a charter amendment.
Okay.
So it would go back to being staggered. And I probably need to get your 2 terms are up normally, right?
yeah,
Yes.
And
the
then,
3 that are up this time are Dick's and Mike's and mine.
which y'all, okay, and then your 2, if you were serving a 4-year term, it'd be 2 years from now, right?
Right,
So that's what we need to get back to.
right.
Again, David sent me a pretty good thought in the email. I think the easiest thing for the General Assembly to do is look at our charter, how it was intended, and mirror it. But
Exactly.
whatever you guys direct me to, I'll do. But to the mayor's point, she did not hold the mayoral seat until my recollection was March. I know we were in COVID because it was a video trial. March or April of 2020, but that's a board decision. That's a political decision, not a legal decision.
Well, and maybe I'm lost in this. Okay. But changing one seat by 3 or 4 doesn't fix the problem. You still have, even have.
It's not going to
4.
fix the long-term problem.
So
It would
are
be
you
just
looking to
one.
do something? I mean, she and I were appointed. So
Right.
is the way that it works now is we are only appointed until the next election.
That's
Yes.
right.
Not to the unexpired term.
Right.
Correct.
So what are you trying to do? Change it so that you say you get appointed to the unexpired term
No,
one time? Or
no.
you just say, because
No.
you're gonna have everybody up this time.
That's,
Exactly.
see,
Right.
when I
That's
brought
the
this to
problem.
Brian, I could probably explain it if you don't.
Go right ahead, Tom.
I brought this to Brian, 3 months ago, 3 months ago, and that was my concern. Appointees serve until the next municipal election. 3 of us are up. Naturally, our 4 years is expiring, okay? The 2
And
terms
mine too.
and yours, and because the mayor's only every 2.
Mhm.
The 2 that we had Jerry still here, he would have 2 more years left, okay? But when you're appointed to those seats, as you described, you don't fill the remainder of the term, it's to the next election.
Right.
So I said something to Brian, I said, geez, we got everybody kicking, and potentially a whole new term of people here. Come
For
to
4
4
years.
Yeah, and come this coming December. And unfortunately, if we don't do something to fix that, that's gonna be status quo forevermore here. Our charter was laid out in 90 or 91, whenever the heck it was. And what they did was when they, at the first election for the town, the mayor did too, the mayor's always been two. The top three of the 5 people who won a seat,
Get 4.
the top 3 got 4, the bottom 2 got 2.
So that's how you staggered it.
And that's what we're asking the General Assembly or the state, however, to do to fix it this time. So we're still gonna have a complete, we're gonna have 5 aldermen and a mayor up for election in November. But from that point forward, it'll hopefully settle
So the
itself down.
next time.
Yeah.
It
The
would
people that
right
serve,
itself.
the 2 the first time, the following election, it's 4 across the board except for the mayor's seat.
Right, so the
Mhm.
first, the last 2, whatever, the last 2 in the lineup
Right.
would be up.
In
And
2
then
years.
they would be
With the mayor.
Mhm.
with the mayor.
They
Running
run like the House of
again.
Representatives.
A regular.
No,
four.
they'd
They're always
they'd
running
be
for
like the
office.
way we've done it in North Topsail Beach
Right.
since we were incorporated.
Right,
And then the following election cycle would be the mayor and the top 3.
Right.
And it would just,
Okay.
Do you want to talk about?
I mean, it sounds like, when I thought about the idea of possibly extending the mayor term, in my mind, I viewed it as a short-term solution just for this transition because it's going to be, potentially everybody.
Mhm.
I don't want to change it moving forward. So I don't even know,
I don't think there's a way
I'm
to
not sure
do
how
it.
to do that.
I don't really think there is.
the
I mean, the General Assembly, they can do whatever they want to. They could say that the existing mayor's seat expires at the next municipal election, but then that would be 2 more years.
Yeah, I don't know.
I can't see them doing it short of a regular municipal election, because
Okay.
it would have to be a special election, and we would have to pay for that.
Yeah, no, I'm not trying to cost the taxpayers
Well,
dollars.
What would happen if she extended, okay, you did the election, the regular election, and the new mayor would just take over 2 months late, or whatever, 3 months late?
That's what we're talking about.
That's kind of what I was, yeah.
But
that-
then-
I know, but you
okay.
have the election at the same
I
time.
see what you're saying.
And what happens in 2 years? That mayor gets
Oh, then
cheated out
that,
of,
yes.
you know,
that's the problem.
You know,
Yes.
you got shortchanged, no doubt about it. And I understand that
However
your
you want.
motive isn't, hey, I got shortchanged, guys. Hey, I'm
Mhm.
trying to help with continuity. And I appreciate that.
Mhm.
But the problem is it's sort of like the whole reason why we're trying to get the staggered terms
Right.
back.
Yeah.
It's like it never goes away.
Mhm.
Somebody's gonna get shorted somewhere down the line. You know,
If
so
you
it's always
extend,
gonna
if you
get
extend
that
somebody
short
3
to the
months,
game.
then you shorten somebody else 3
Yeah,
months.
The only middle ground is that you could extend the mayoral seat for 3 years, and that would be 1 more year, but then,
It's gotta run again.
but then you still run into the
That was so
problem of. the
She's just
odd-
gotta run
the
again.
odd years
Well,
that
I
fall
will, I will also say, and I think about this all the time too. I don't necessarily agree with the 2-year term for, and I'm not speaking just for myself, but it takes so long to accomplish anything at a municipal level.
There's
That
history
2
there.
years is
Yeah.
just, I feel like you're just getting started really, or,
Yeah.
you're starting to see the fruition of something.
Yeah.
And then that's it.
Were you the attorney when the town tried or made some effort toward changing the mayor's term to 4 years? Were you?
If
the
I was, I
attorney?
wasn't invited to that conversation.
Because no, it was, I was sitting in the back row. I was sitting in the back row with Eric Emmerich and a few other of my more illustrious colleagues, but there was some discussion about it that you can change it to 4 years, but it can't affect the person who's currently in office or something like it. It sounded really odd, but there
Can't
was some
benefit the person
discussion
asking
about
for it.
trying to change it, and
I think the rule is that it doesn't take effect until the next election.
something
In
like
other
that.
words, you
Are we
can't,
in closed session
No,
No.
She's just getting ready.
we're doing the.
Sorry,
we're
I'm
doing-
sorry, I'm like, whoa.
We're
I missed
doing
that.
we're doing the attorney's report.
Sorry. Go
Go
ahead.
I think the rule, Tom,
Focus, Rick.
you're referring to is that any of that type of change starts at the very next municipal election.
Yeah,
One other thing he said too, and I didn't realize this, but since the census is late, even though we don't have wards or districts, the municipal election is going to be likely pushed off.
They're all gonna be delayed statewide. It's gonna be a state, what I read in the newspaper, State Board of Elections is talking about basically making that decision statewide, even for municipalities where it has absolutely no effect, like ours, because we have 5 at-large candidates.
My understanding is that that is what is going to happen.
Right.
If it's postponed at all, it's across the board. So you may pick up a few months.
Yeah,
Well,
Yeah,
what do you all think about me aside, just thinking of this long term? I really do, I would prefer as a citizen, seeing the mayor longer than 2 years, even if it's just 3. Because I'm telling you, 2 is just,
I've changed that from one I've requested legislation and obtained legislation for another 4 years for those reasons. That's a policy decision, not a legal decision.
and when do you need, I'd like everybody to be able to think about it. When do you need
Well,
to?
we're done now for this session.
Okay.
The deadline was last Thursday.
Okay, so it doesn't matter for now
That
then.
means our bill for
But,
our occupancy tax bill to get in on the Senate side. I don't know if it did or not.
It's longer.
I think we have a longer
House side
deadline.
is the-
No, this is the Senate side. This is Lazara we were after.
I mean, think about like the governor is, excuse me,
Go ahead.
the governor is 4 years, right?
I believe so.
So, I mean, it makes sense for mayor to be 4 years for the same reasons.
Well, if we've missed this deadline, we can consider it for,
The thing is, the mayor, what we need to be sure of is that the mayor's election always takes place along with the other election, and we don't want to have the added administrative and just the expense
That's cost
of,
prohibitive. You can't have.
yeah,
a
we just
special
need,
election.
whatever we do, it's got to stay in sync with the rest of what the town does.
okay, all right, well, I think we're good there. Then we're gonna move on. It's me, is it my report? I've got a couple things.
Well, the only other thing I have, you all received my responses to.
Yes,
questions.
I didn't get a chance to read it yet.
Questions about that, feel free to email me or call me, but please don't reply to all as normal because.
Okay,
Thank you.
so for my item, I just want to make sure that we did pick the date for the retreat. We've talked about a couple items in here that would be good for the retreat. So if we picked, what day did we just pick? The 24th. So I would say when, just backing that up, we probably, by the end of next week, need to take another look. I believe we've already gotten a draft agenda for the retreat out because we were gonna have it. Can we please just take a look at that and get any feedback back to staff as soon as possible?
Okay.
I also wanted to thank Alderman Leonard for everything that you did, along with all of staff's efforts for the park dedication for Mr. Peters. I just thought that went really well. I had actually been COVID tested as well, so that's why I stood in the back. I didn't want a chance to get him sick. Yeah, right there. Have my mask on. I am also really thrilled to hear about the fundraiser because that's one of the things that we've been really trying to do in North Topsail Beach is be able to pull the community together in some ways more than just the jazz festival. So I would just wanted to thank you, Chief, for working through that as well. I'm sure I'm forgetting something, but that's what I have.
May I say something about that? I think there was a hiccup procedurally, but I was not aware of the dedication, otherwise I would have been there. And I'm saying this more for the minutes than I am anything else. Hopefully Alderman Peters is listening in or will hear. I've served with him, I think, longer than anybody. Well, I've served as town attorney, I think, longer than anyone in this room, and with Mr. Peters. Tom, you told me the other day what the history was.
Yeah.
Known him for a long time. He is a wonderful public servant, a great honorable man, and I hate that I missed that dedication, but I missed it because I wasn't aware of the date and time. So from what I understand, it was hats off to staff. It was a great ceremony, and I think I missed it, but he certainly has earned it, and I'm glad that I have it. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm gonna go this way then, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. I've got 3 items to report on. Meetings I've attended since our last board meeting. The long-term memorandum agreement Shallowdraft Inlet is a quarterly meeting. Manager Gilbride and I attended virtually. For us, he covered in his manager's report about the private dredge. Just add to that, there are 4 shoals that Goodloe is to dredge at the crossing in the channel Jacksonville. And the survey map that was presented at the during the meeting, they've only dredged 1 of those 4, and the biggest one is still to the Camp Lejeune side of the crossing. So hopefully there will be a lot more sand coming down to the beach, even if it's not a big enough grain size to stay there very long. And the other thing for our interest from that meeting was the dredge merit is scheduled to be back in the New River Inlet the end of March or the 1st of April.
This year?
Yes, this
Wow.
coming March. And it hasn't been there since for at least 6 months.
Good.
They're putting their dredge Currituck in dry dock, and they're going to move the crew from the Currituck to the Merritt, so the Merritt can run like 24 hours a day rather than 8 hours or 12 hours. And the Shallowdraft Fund financially is well off. I'm really kind of worried that with the state, if the state budget is shortfall, that there might be some pressure to reduce that budget. But there's adequate funds for that 75-25% match for municipalities to do work in the inlets. The other meeting I attended was the Coastal Resources Commission quarterly meeting. And for our town, the biggest concern was the inlet hazard rules. We've talked about these kind of ad nauseum in the past, but we haven't made much, we didn't make any progress in getting them to modify the inlet hazard area for the New River Inlet. We did, I made another public comment to try to get them to reconsider during the actual meeting. And I don't know, Manager Gilbert, if you were on that meeting or not, I don't remember. But basically, the inlet hazard area is proposed by the science panel is on track to be accepted probably at the next quarterly meeting. And if you remember, that hazard area has been extended down to the St. Regis, about to the St. Regis or to the end of the St. Regis. Yeah.
But I also heard, and I had asked to see when, I'd asked to see what this final is, because I've heard that there are also some exceptions to that rule. Like if the dwelling is less than 5,000 square foot, it's not impacted by the inlet hazard area. I've heard, the grandfather
Yeah,
rule. So
the whole set of grandfathering rules have not changed. They were
Okay.
as they were originally proposed. So
Okay.
you're right on that. Yeah. Oh, here's another thing. The towns are being encouraged to develop a beach management plan. And we talked about this earlier today. And this would be something that would be approved by the Division of Coastal Management. And the idea is with a beach management plan in place, it would reduce the time for permitting when we had to get permits for various projects on the beach. So we'll see where that goes. And the other meeting I wanted to mention that all of us attended, this is the Topsail Island Shoreline Protection Commission meeting. Manager Gilbride, Alderman Leonard, our town rep, Connie Plettle, and myself. It was a virtual meeting. Alderman Leonard already mentioned, gave us a pretty good update on the Cobra situation. So we won't go there. Manager Gilbride went over kind of what the manager's report he gave us tonight for that Topsail Island group. And one of the goals at the state level is to, again, change the state financing rules for terminal growings. So that's one of the goals of topsoil shore protection as well as our goal. So and if you're interested, you can see the goals, all the goals for the state and federal advocates are on the Topsail Island Shore Protection Commission website. So that's my report, Mayor.
Thank you, sir.
Well, Mayor, I just realized we forgot something.
No, we didn't. What did we forget?
Yes, we did. We forgot to talk about NC Byway Conference sponsorship.
Oh, we did.
Okay.
Can you do it as part of?
I can do it as part of my, but we're gonna need to take a vote. We're gonna need a
Do we need
motion
to-
vote. We're gonna.
We added it to the
Well,
agenda.
We
and
did,
forgot.
but
What
we
happens, we
went
didn't
right
get it.
past it.
So let me just, and Brian tells, ordinarily, every year for both conferences, the spring and fall, the town's sponsors is a sponsor, either a silver, which is 1,000 with, and gives us 2 conference registrations, or gold, which is $1,500, which gives us 3. But given that I think the registration for members in the town as a member, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's 150 a pop. So really, I think I would recommend that we do a silver sponsorship. And then anyone else needs to go, we pay for it out of pocket because it still comes out less expensive. But ordinarily, the way we've done this in the past is I've mentioned it, talked about it, and then the board usually makes a motion. So I usually make the motion and we approve the town sponsoring the event as a gold or silver sponsor. So can we still do that, Brian, even though I'm in my manager's report or my alderman's report?
Yeah, as long as no one objects. I mean, if it's on the agenda as an action.
Yeah,
It was, we
we
missed
just
it.
left it off because it
Yeah.
wasn't on the agenda. We added it. We missed it.
Well, the mayor can always say point of order. We need to go back to this.
Okay.
If everyone consents. we're
Do your
fine.
mayor
We're
thing.
fine.
And I should-
Well, if everybody, does anybody object
No.
to voting? Okay.
What
Okay.
was the amount of the silver?
It's $1,000 with 2 conference registrations, and that would be the recommendation that I would make is that I'd make the motion that the town of North Thompson Beach becomes a silver level sponsor for the upcoming North Carolina Beach Inlet Waterway Association Spring Conference.
I'll
Do we-
second that.
Second, any discussion?
It's the end of, it's the last
The end of
weekend,
April.
last
You
week of
sent the
April.
email.
I
But
just
that's-
have one question. The online attendees, do they pay the same?
You know,
as-
I don't know. I looked it up today and I'm gonna call Kathleen and find out because I don't know if they do or not. I don't think we got a break last time.
I'm sure we didn't.
Last year, they didn't charge, but this year, I think they're going to for virtual attendance.
Yeah,
I wonder. And if
But
there's
I
a
listened
break
last
for
year.
virtual.
I listened last year, and I didn't have to pay anything, as far as I
Okay.
remember.
anyway, so you have a motion?
We have
and
a
second?
motion and we have a second.
Mhm.
Can we take a vote? Yes,
Aye, no, I'm voting.
we're good. Susan?
Aye.
Aye. All in favor then? Okay.
Okay, well, that was not my report.
Oh, no, you're done. You're on time.
All right,
No, go ahead.
my report is a big thank you to everybody along that side of the wall there. Management, staff, and all the town's departments were involved in the dedication of Richard C. Peters Park last Tuesday. I've been associated for a long time with the town, one form or fashion or the other, as citizen member of a committee, and then there's an alderman. And I've never been as proud to be a part of this organization as I was last Tuesday. I honestly, sincerely believe that. I mean that. Everybody just came together, worked so well, and it was such a fine day. It was such a fine event. One other thing I want to talk about very briefly, I alluded in my invocation, special sort of sad month for me. We lost 18 of our local Marines on March 23rd, 2003 in Al Azariya, Iraq. The Marine Corps was engaged in very heavy combat operations in conjunction with the invasion and the occupation of Iraq and marched to Baghdad. And the unit from here, and I was a member, was tasked to secure the bridges across the Euphrates River and the Saddam Canal in the city of Al Azariya. It's the same city where the Army's 507th Maintenance Company got lost. I'm almost done. And was ambushed and just the Lynch was taken prisoner. During the course of the battle, Task Force Charlie, 2nd Marine Expeditionary Brigade, saw some of the heaviest fighting of the campaign. There were some of the 18 Marines we lost, were some of the first combat casualties of the war. And it really took everybody over there hard. We weren't used to that. We weren't used to it in Desert Storm. It was all push button. I only remind everybody of this for a couple of reasons. One is we have a lot of Marines that enjoy our town. Some enjoy it to excess. You know, some of them are residents here. They live here a short period of time, long period of time. You can't get rid of them like me. You know, and we have a lot of visitors that are Marines, and speaking candidly, sometimes we always don't see them at maybe their absolute very best. But you know, at the same time, they're the ones that go do the things those kids did that day. And the second is, you know, we're all very familiar with the noise from the training conducted by our neighbors. Our neighbors. When I get text from the mayor, make your friends stop. You know, it's frustrating at times and sometimes it's annoying, but it's very necessary. And sometimes what they do here is a difference between them coming home in one piece or not when they go to places like Iraq. And with that, I am finished with my report.
Just real quick, thank him for putting it together, Tom. Did a great job. And to the town people as well. I think that Jim's doing a much needed job on Facebook with all the parking stuff. In my walks, people are now asking me, because I have my white bucket with me, so everybody knows who I am. And I think we're going to be able to get through the issue of the condo fees. We were into a couple today, and they live in Villa, and they're like, hey, do I have to park when I take my kid to the park? And I said, no, you get 2 slots. But I explained to them about the water stuff. I mean, they asked, can you use the electric bill? I just told them, work it through it, but make sure that you contact the people, because I think Jim will take care of that. And the people that I'm talking to that are basically homeowners and residents are basically saying, we're all for paid parking. Okay, and I can tell you it's, and they're really, they didn't like the congestion and everything else. And, you know, I mean, the one lady said, which was pretty funny, she said, I hope your parking revenue is 0 this year. I said, really? She goes, yeah, because it won't be on my beach. So again, thank you. What you guys did. And like I said, we love living here.
Okay. I've been working with the county Parks and Recreation as well about possibly doing movies in our park.
Nice.
And they've been very generous. And what I did not realize is there's like a $200 fee that you have, licensing fee that you have to pay to show a movie. So we can't just like go out and show a movie. Anyway, the county has offered, they have like a bulk deal, and I don't think they're gonna ask for any money, but they'd like to help us maybe once a month do a movie in the park.
I think that'd be nice.
Awesome.
Now, if we want to, if it works out nicely and we want to move forward and do it more often next year, we may have to do the bulk deal and spend some money, but I don't think right now we're going to have to. We're still in the planning stage with it. I've asked them to look at their schedules because I said, really, we don't have anything booked on a Saturday night.
I think that would be
So-
fantastic. Surf City they really seem to
Right.
enjoy it there.
Surf City has their own equipment and everything too.
Okay.
And the other thing that Katie shared with me is she has applied for a grant. And it's for music concerts. And she put in the grant that she'd like to do it here in North Thompson.
Oh, that's
Awesome.
nice.
So we could possibly have 2 Saturdays
A month
a month
with
that-
something.
with
That'd be
something.
good.
That'd be really
That'd be
nice.
real good. Great.
And
Really nice.
so, plus, I feel like it might help build our
Community.
county-town relationship.
Yeah, you guys are doing great. You too. Doing great.
And it would be at Richard C. Peters Park.
Yes.
Yes,
That's what we
it
would
would be at Richard C.
C.
Peters Park. And parking over at the county as well.
Mhm.
We
It's
have
free.
2 bathrooms,
Right.
you know, 2 sets of
Cool.
bathrooms there. So
Awesome.
anyway, I thought that was gonna be a great thing.
I think that's
That's
great. The
great.
only thing
Now,
I would,
Sherry helped me with this too, so I want to thank her.
the only thing I would ask is that when it comes to budget time, if you, when you're going through this, if you think we should put a placeholder in for next year, let's make sure we do that.
We've already talked about it.
Okay, good.
So we're only talking about maybe $1,500 to start with, but, you know.
Okay,
All right.
all
So
right.
that's my report.
That's John.
Okay, so then what we need is, we need a motion to go into closed session to
So
discuss
moved.
personnel matters.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all in
Aye.
favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay,
Take about a 5-minute break.
yep,
How much do we have in this executive session?
in the closed session. There's just a couple of them.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Good luck.
This is a letter from our auditor recently.
Alexa, unmute.
When you start filming in that.
I can type up on the sign that we came out.
Closed session and no action was taken.
Make the motion, we adjourn.
Anyone second
So
that?
moved. Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
All right.
He made the motion, Tom made the motion, not he. Tom.
I was second.
Groucho guy. Well, one of the three Groucho guys. Groucho guy at Little.
Dave.
Text me.
Before the shit.